Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always exciting to be back.
You ever get that, that feeling when you've got like a ton of articles bookmarked, but you just haven't had the time to really dig in?
Oh yeah, definitely happens to the best of us.
Well, today we are tackling that feeling head on with this piece about mindset shifts, and get this, they claim to make them easy.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Who couldn't use a little easy when it comes to, self-improvement?
Right. The article is titled, Changing Your Mindset is Easy, actually. Tips to Change Your Life. And it promises a practical, down-to-earth approach. So less airy-fairy affirmations, more concrete actions.
I like the sound of that.
Me too. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Let's see how easy it really is.
All right, so the first tip they introduce is the spike method. Have you ever gotten, super into something, maybe even surprisingly so?
Yeah.
Like you become, the go-to person for a particular type of cuisine or some niche hobby or something?
Absolutely. Like that time I went down a total rabbit hole researching the entire history of board games, obsessed.
Exactly. Well, the spike method is about harnessing that energy intentionally. The article suggests taking something you enjoy, maybe even something as ordinary as cleaning.
Cleaning.
Okay, hear me out.
All right. I'm intrigued.
Imagine becoming an absolute expert on cleaning. You know all the best products, techniques, hacks. You've even got a mental catalog of the most efficient robot vacuum models.
Okay.
You're not just cleaning anymore, you're like a cleaning guru.
I see where you're going with this. It's about building confidence by developing a sense of mastery, even in an unexpected area.
Precisely. And the article argues that this boost in confidence can then spill over into other areas of your life.
Right.
You start to see yourself as someone who's capable of learning and excelling, which can be a really powerful mindset shift.
Totally. It's like you're rewiring your brain to see yourself as someone who takes action and seeks out knowledge, not just someone who avoids challenges.
Exactly. And that ties in nicely with the next tip, which challenges our traditional definition of being smart. The article argues that true intelligence isn't about being like a walking encyclopedia, but about being a lifelong learner who actively seeks out and applies knowledge. So it's about what's fascinating to you and what matters most.
Absolutely. It's about moving beyond that fixed mindset of I'm either smart or I'm not, and embracing a growth mindset where you see every experience as an opportunity to, learn and evolve.
Okay, so picture this. Instead of just reading about something, you're out there experimenting, applying what you've learned, and making it your own. It's the difference between simply admiring, a beautiful garden and actually getting your hands dirty, planting seeds, and watching them grow.
And in the process, you're not just acquiring knowledge, you're building skills, confidence, and a sense of agency over your own growth.
Mm-hmm.
You're proving to yourself that you're capable of learning and adapting. And, when you have that feeling of accomplishment, it's incredibly motivating.
Totally. And speaking of aha moments, this next tip is a little bit of a mind bender. The
Yeah.
article calls it the power of saying easy.
Okay, I'm listening.
It essentially boils down to this. Whenever you face a challenge that seems really daunting, you try consciously reframing it as easy.
Interesting. So instead of saying this is going to be so hard, you say this is going to be easy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, I know it sounds almost too simplistic, but there's actually some really interesting research on how our self-talk influences our performance. So by using the word easy, you're kind of signaling to your brain that this is something you can handle, which can actually reduce anxiety and improve your chances of success.
Yeah, it's like giving yourself a mental head start.
Totally.
Instead of focusing on all the obstacles, you're shifting your attention to the possibility of things going smoothly.
Precisely. And the article even suggests using this technique for everyday tasks. So instead of, groaning about having to do the dishes, you could try saying, this will be easy. I'll have the kitchen sparkling in no time.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a game changer, especially for those dreaded tasks.
Absolutely. And you know what else can be surprisingly effective?
What's that?
A little something they call productive procrastination.
Now, hold on a second. Aren't we always told that procrastination is the enemy of productivity?
Right. But this is different. This isn't about putting things off indefinitely.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing those moments when you're feeling stuck and using a little bit of strategic procrastination to actually get unstuck.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
So imagine you're working on this big project and you're feeling overwhelmed. So instead of forcing yourself to power through, you give yourself permission to take a break and tackle a smaller, more manageable task.
So instead of staring at that daunting blank page, you might organize your desk or answer a few email.
Exactly. And the idea is that by taking action, even if it's not directly related to the main task at hand, you create a sense of momentum.
Right.
You trick your brain into thinking, hey, we're making progress here, which can then make it easier to return to the bigger challenge with renewed energy and focus.
It's like that feeling of accomplishment you get from like crossing something off your to-do list, even if it's something small. It gives you a little boost of motivation to keep going.
Exactly. And speaking of motivation, I think this next tip is particularly relevant to our deep dive today.
Okay.
It's about embracing the learning curve.
Yeah, that's something we often forget, isn't it? We get
Mhm.
so caught up in wanting to be like good at something right away that we forget that true mastery takes time and effort.
It's so true. We've all been there, right? You start something new, full of enthusiasm,
Yep.
and then you hit a wall,
Yeah.
you make mistakes, you feel frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so easy to start doubting yourself.
Totally.
But this article reminds us that those setbacks are actually an essential part of the learning process.
It's true.
Yeah, it's like we're so conditioned to think of mistakes as failures,
Right.
but actually they're just opportunities for growth, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's where this next tip comes in, reframing failure as feedback.
Ooh, I like that.
So instead of seeing setbacks as like a sign that we're not cut out for something, what if we viewed them as like valuable data points?
Hmm. It's about shifting our perspective from I failed
Hmm.
to like I learned something that will help me do better next time.
Yeah, it's like having a built-in feedback loop
Right.
that helps us constantly refine our approach and get closer to our goals. And the more we kind of like embrace this mindset, the less daunting those initial challenges become, right?
Exactly, because we begin to see that like making mistakes isn't a reflection of our worth.
Right,
It's simply part of the process of, growth and mastery.
for sure.
And that's a really empowering realization.
It really is. Now, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, this idea of the growth mindset. The article doesn't really explicitly define it, so I'm curious, how would you explain this concept to someone who's like completely new to the idea?
Okay, so in a nutshell, a growth mindset is the belief that your abilities aren't fixed.
Okay.
They're malleable, you know. It's the understanding that you can learn and grow throughout your life,
Mm-hmm.
and that challenges are opportunities to expand your capabilities.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of a fixed mindset where you believe that like your intelligence and talents are predetermined.
And what's so interesting is that studies have shown that people with a growth mindset tend to be more resilient, more adaptable, and honestly just more successful in the long run.
Absolutely. Because they're not afraid to step outside their comfort zone, embrace challenges, and, learn from their mistakes.
Right.
They see setbacks as temporary
Mm-hmm.
and opportunities for improvement, not as like permanent reflections of their abilities.
Yeah, so it sounds like as we think about all these tips for like changing our mindsets, yeah,
Cultivating a growth mindset is kind of like a key ingredient.
it really is because when you believe in your ability to learn and grow, you're more likely to embrace the challenges and setbacks that are an inevitable part of life.
For sure.
And that's what ultimately allows you to make, meaningful progress towards your goals.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I always love chatting with you.
Likewise, always a pleasure.
So to bring it all together for our listeners, what would you say are like the biggest takeaways from this article?
I think the most important message is that like changing your mindset doesn't have to be this monumental, overwhelming task.
Right.
It's about making small, consistent shifts in your thinking and behavior.
Hmm.
It's about embracing challenges, reframing failures as feedback,
Yeah.
and, cultivating a growth mindset. And those small shifts over time can lead to some pretty incredible transformations.
Absolutely. They can empower you to break free from limiting beliefs, tap into your full potential, and honestly, create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
It's like upgrading your mental operating system to one that's more adaptable, resilient, and future-proof.
I like that.
That's a pretty powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, we would love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you most from this deep dive? What small shift are you going to try this week? Until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring the incredible power of your own mind.